Guys, it's Tessa. So this video was going to be extremely different than what it is now. Not really actually. Same concept, different fabric. But like the title says, I am going to see if I can finish this quilt in 24 hours. Caveat. I did start this technically last night at like 9 p.m. I cut out all my squares and started some of the sewing. And I started sewing them as well. But these are the 5 fabrics we are using today. Most of these are from the beloved Joanne. Fantastic. So hopefully I can finish this today. It's currently 10 a.m. So really this is going to be a can I finish a quilt in 12 hours? But that is where we are at. What I've started so far as well, which crazy, literally none of my seams line up, but I'm a decent amount in. I'm just doing like your standard pattern, I guess you could say. For the actual quilt top, I think what I'm going to do is lines on both sides of each like seam all the way down, and then maybe do like a cross in the squares themselves, or like another line or two through it. I don't really know for sure yet. It's just an idea. I think I'll get a better idea once it's all like completed and we find out if literally any one of my corners line up. Literally none of them line up so far, which is crazy, but I get it because I'm not really trying too hard on this one. I'm trying to do more projects, I think, that bring me joy and don't like bring me stress. So that's why I ended up switching the quilt project I was going to do. So originally the plan here, the square's not even completed because I got so annoyed with it. Originally the plan was to do like your standard, I don't know what it's called, but it's the like little bricky guy, the little triangle snowflakey looking thing, with a bunch of different squares of fabric. But one, my seams aren't lining up even remotely close to each other, which is a little bit of a problem. And then 2, I feel like it's just too busy, or there's too much contrast making it look funny. So I think my solution for this one is I'm putting it on pause for right now. And I think instead of doing like this layout, I'm instead gonna do like just these half square triangles and like not do an actual like design with it, just go down the lines. I don't know though, I've cut like 100 of them, maybe almost 200 of them so far, so I have a bunch of them. They're all made, I just need to do something with them. But that project was annoying me too much, so now we're here. I'm gonna get working on this guy, and then we can reconnect when either I make a major mistake on this or once I've gotten through some of the rows. Alright, so I finished the quilt top itself. It's alright, it's not great. I don't know what kept happening. Is it this side? Yeah, I don't know what kept happening. The farther I would go, the more rows I would do, I would start not lining up like at all. I don't know what happened. I spent like 2 hours last night cutting fabric, so I assume I cut it correctly, but maybe I didn't. So next steps are going to be ironing all these seams to be flat, and then it'll be sandwiching all of my quilting, like the batting, the backing, and the front, the top here together. I will say I'm a little bit nervous that I don't have enough batting for the size I made. I have a 36 by 45 inch like rectangle of batting, so I might have to cut off a decent amount from one side to like level it out, whatever though, not really that big of a deal to be honest. Because again, I haven't made a quilt in like 2 years, so really this is just kind of like a refresher slash like something for me to do, but yeah. First round of quilting done. Now I've got the other lines in this direction to do. Okay, so I've gotten through all of the quilting. Again, my lines aren't perfect. There's tons of puckering in this, but that's okay. I've gone through all of it. I also trimmed the edge, I can't remember what it's called, and I've done the using the backing as the binding. So all that's been pinned, time to sew. Alright, so I'll admit, it's been a few days since we talked. However, I did finish the quilt in time. Okay, so I did finish it in time. I think, so I took a 2-hour nap on Sunday. Okay, it's Wednesday now, by the way. I took a 2-hour nap on Sunday because I've been really tired lately. So I was like, let me just take a little nappy poo, it'll be fine. Took a 2-hour nap, 3-hour nap, got food, and then continued the quilt. I think I got about halfway on it before, or halfway on the binding before I stopped and took the nap. But the quilt is in fact finished. I don't know how well you can see it. And like I showed you as well, I use the acorn fabric as the backing fabric here. I do have, oh, another cool thing. Something I'm gonna do with all the quilts I'm gonna make, because yes, I'm obsessed with quilting now. It's my new thing. Something I plan to do with all the quilts I make is put the month and the year that I finished it on a little triangle at the corner of the quilt. It's kind of hard to see because of the yarn I used or thread I used here. But this quilt, I learned things. So if you remember, I believe I've pinned it already, but if you remember, I made a quilt 2 Novembers ago, so not last year, but the following year. I made that quilt, and then I don't think I have it on this channel, but several years ago at this point, I made a really small miniature quilt for Mr. Gibbs, and he tore it up, and it wasn't big enough to even cover him really. I was just throwing my hand at quilting. I hated it at the time, to be honest, so I didn't do it really. This one though, I think for what it's worth, I did pretty okay. Now, I haven't washed this yet. I'm hoping to do that. If I can remember, I'm hoping to do it tomorrow, but I doubt I'll remember in time to do it, to be honest. Things have been, as always, really chaotic lately. But as you can see, I did like just a simple finish for the quilting. I basically took my, I was gonna call it a quilter machine, sewing machine, and I basically just put my needle to the left or right of the seam of 2 squares on either side and went down, and then I did the same thing on the cross as well. So it kind of like makes a design to like a smaller square instead of the bigger square, so on. Some areas it looks really nice. Like this section, it doesn't look perfect, but it looks okay. And then we have sections like, let's see if I can find one, hold on. That's the medium okay side of the quilt, I think. No. Okay. Then we have sections like here where, because of the way this stitch is designed, it also gives you like a miniature box next to where all the seams connect. So on sections like this where it's just not lined up really well at all, it looks a little funny, but I don't mind it really. Like I said, I've learned quite a few things from this quilt alone. First one, hey guys, it's a really smart idea to iron your backing fabric for a couple reasons. One, so if you have a center seam going down your backing fabric, it's not permanently slightly folded. Because mine, wherever my center seam is, where did it just go? Right here. My center seam here, a couple of the squares, I don't know if you can see it, have a permanent wrinkle in it because I didn't iron this beforehand, so when I went over it, it kept the wrinkle. Which, no biggie. I don't really care about that if I'm being completely honest. But realistically, I should have ironed it. I know quilting is a lot about ironing and pinning and sewing, but really it's about ironing. I will say as well, another reason I should have ironed it, there's a section here somewhere. Now that I'm looking for, here it is. There's an entire section where somehow I didn't pull it properly when I was pinning it and basting it, but there's like a whole like 1/2-inch chunk just around this corner on the backing fabric, and I have no idea why. I don't know how that happened. I thought I was really careful about it, but clearly I wasn't. I also think I'm gonna continue to do the mitered square corners. I did them wrong, I will say. I've never seen anyone stitch up them, so I'll see if I can focus that for you. But I've never seen anybody stitch up them, so I don't know why I did that, but I think I just wanted to do it to make sure it would hold, essentially. But I did that on all 4 corners, which it doesn't look bad or anything. I don't really care, honestly, how the quilting looks. I used a really nice bottom thread so that you can't really see where the quilt lines are. However, because I used so many different color squares, you can see it up here. I don't know though. I really like this quilt. One other thing I learned is even if you cut your squares at 6.5 inches or 6 inches, you still should square them off when you sew them together. Okay, and for those of you who don't know what squaring off means, basically you just put them back under your ruler and make sure they still make a square, relatively the correct size. Because that's what caused so much of the shifting towards that one side of this blanket, is the green squares I think were cut at 6.5 inches, or because I cut it so thick it couldn't do an actual straight line. So by the time it got onto the quilt, it's a larger square. Also, I'm like 60% sure the green squares are like a polyester fabric. I don't really know though, if I'm being honest. I bought it so long ago. It feels a little bit like a cotton, but it's much stiffer than all the cotton that's on here currently, so that's why I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, the other thing I found out after I finished this blanket, I think it's called the selvage, I might be wrong, but it's the like denser woven part of like the edge of the fabric. A lot of the times, at least on like the green here, it's a different texture. I'll see if you can kind of see it. It's this bottom edge here. But it's like a different-ish texture. But apparently, you're not supposed to include the selvage in your quilts, because selvage will shrink at a different rate than everywhere else on your fabric. So those little sections are going to shrink kind of differently. I'm so nervous to wash this. I will also add, I think for me personally, I don't think I will do, I think I literally just said I would, but I don't think I will use the backing fabric as the binding in the future. I don't know if I love the look. Again, this could also be because I didn't iron it, so my edging is all sorts of fucking wonky as hell. I also should have more properly ironed all of my squares before starting to sew them down. I should have ironed everything except for the batting because that didn't need to be ironed. But I should have ironed everything before I did all the sandwiching, because I think that would have actually fixed a fair amount of my problems, if I'm being honest. Or if I maybe just took more time on each section and like each step of like sewing the squares together, cutting them out, all of that. I think if I just took more time on it, I would have been more successful. With all of that being said, I think I'm obsessed with quilting. And I will say, I have tried quilting several times in the past. I've done like hand sewing hexagons, I've done blankets like this. The one I made for Gibby was just 2 sheets of remnant fabric sewed together with like a fleece in the middle, not even like actual backing, or not actual batting. And then I used, I think, 2-inch double folded bias tape in like this neon orange color. There was no neon orange in this quilt. I don't know why I did this, but it was something. But I'm really excited to continue quilting. In fact, I'm so excited to continue quilting that since Sunday night when I finished this, I've been doing non-stop quilting stuff. I've knit once, and it's Wednesday, okay? But let's talk about the other quilt I'm working on real quick as well. So I, like I said, am obsessed. And I am deciding to try to do another grandmother's flower garden quilt, which for those of you who don't know, it's just making these little hexagons and then making them in this like flower shape, okay? And I'm loving it. What is wrong with me? What happened? Why do I hate it and why do I love it now? I think the answer to that is I just want to be more purposeful in general. I've talked about this a little bit here and there. I just want to be more purposeful with what I'm doing, and I think something like quilting forces me to be more purposeful. But yeah, so I'm loving this so much. I have a huge stack of hexagons. I was gonna call them squares. I have a decently large stack of hexagons that I've cut out. I used 2 fat quarters to do the center pieces of all of these. And it's this fabric, you've seen it before, but it's like this, it's like herbs and plants, basically. So for some of them, or for most of them, I tried to get one of the plants in the center. And on the ones where I couldn't, it's just like a little bit of like the plant on it. Like here's another center plant one. But then you'll see like this one kind of has a plant in the middle, but not really. And so on. You get the picture by now. But, so those are gonna be my centerpieces. I thought those would be really cute as the center, because it's like, oh, it's, you know, your grandmother's garden's quilt, flower garden quilt. And it's like, oh, it's plants, you know. I've also unintentionally either used food, like plantable foods fabrics, or just other like cottage core adjacent. I think I'm really leaning into the I would like to be a hobbit energy, as you saw for the first flower, which I'm gonna do another row and I'll explain that in a second. But for the first flower, I'm using strawberries. I have this pumpkins one. I have a fuck ton more acorn fabric. And then I also have, this was also part of a fat quarter bundle, but I used some of it, so I don't have as many of these squares. But it's this like green plaid-ish combo. I really like it actually. Anyway, all of this to say that when I get paid, I will likely be running down to the fabric store and buying a couple more yards of fabric so that I just have more variety in the quilt. I don't even know how big this thing's gonna be, if I'm being honest. I might just go ham on it. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to see a video about that, let me know. If you have any comments, feedback, tips for quilting, let me know as well. And if you want to see more of this, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.